Okay, and welcome back. We're doing the Junior Cycle 2024 paper. We're doing question 2. Okay, so let's start reading the question for understanding. The table below, that's this table here, shows the distance in centimeters jumped by a group of students during a school long jump competition, and they have a small little picture there of a student in the middle of a long jump. Okay, and we're to note that 80 to 160 is less than 160. We say it's strictly less than 160. So everything in here is from 0 to 80. Everything but not including 80, etc. Okay, so work out the number of students who jumped less than 240. So it's going to be 0 plus 2 plus 7, because we know this is strictly less than 240. Okay, so the calculation is 0 plus 2 plus 7, which is equal to 9 students. And if you just wrote down 9 students, you'd get full marks there, as it says here, except 9 without work in question A. Okay, now we're going to draw a histogram, so I'm going to switch over to pencil. I'm going to draw a histogram to show the information in the table. Okay, so the 0 to 80 has 0, so there's no particular way to show that, as it's not, the way it's not shown here, so we don't do anything. From 80 to 160 has a value of 2. I'm going to draw across here the top of that bar. I'll do in the vertical lines later. For next one is I need to be up 7, so just focus on these numbers as you work across. I need to be up 7, which is across here. I need to be up 12, which is here, and I need to be up 3, which is halfway between the 2 and the 4, it's here. Okay. Now the thing about a histogram is there should be no gaps, and you will be penalized for gaps, as I'm going to show you in the marking scheme. Then you take the higher of the two values and you draw in your vertical lines for the bars. Okay, and in order to improve or speed up your problem solving, very good idea to include the values of 0, 2, 7, 12 and 3 on your histogram. Okay, so as we can see, these were they clumped together. Let's have a look. They were, so you only got 5 marks for those two. Okay, so not a lot of marks going for them, but you need to get both of them fully correct to get those 5 marks, as in here. Okay, let's look at how you could drop marks. For example, one error in the histogram, for example, all bars of correct height but with gaps. So that would cost you. Histogram fully correct, but the wrong answer here. And just a -1, one height incorrect in B, otherwise correct, but A writes 2 plus 7 equals X, where X is not equal to 9. 2 plus, so basically calculates that wrong. Okay, so that's the end of question 2, or is it? It's not. Hold on. I need to bring this across. Okay, so work out the maximum number of students who could have jumped more than 200. The first thing we're going to do is find out where 200 is on our input scale. Okay, so let's use our histogram for that. 200 will be here. Okay, now there's a very critical word. We don't know how these 7 are distributed. They could be distributed any way at all. They could all be at the lower end, they could all be at the higher end, or anything in between. Okay, so when it asks for the maximum number that could have jumped more than 200, we're going to assume all of those 7 are in this top part of it. okay, which makes our calculation 7 plus 12 plus 3. Okay, I'm going to rely on mental maths for this. 7 and 3 is 10, and 12 is 22. And I'll write 22 students max. Okay, driving on from there, use mid-interval values. Use mid-interval to estimate the mean distance jumped by the group of students and give your answer correct to the nearest centimeter. Okay, now there is a formula in the log tables. It's here for a frequency table. The thing about it is it takes some interpreting what on earth. So I'm going to write down the formula though. It is the sum of the products of f and the variable value x all over the sum of the frequencies. Okay, so what does that look like for us? It looks like 0 is the frequency to begin with here. 0 times the mid-interval value of 40 plus, and you could leave it out, but to be honest, it can cause more confusion if you're trying to understand your work, so it's as easy to put it in. And the next thing is we have 2 for our frequency multiplied by the mid-interval value here, which is 120. Now the important thing is the intervals are all a fixed amount of 80, so we can remember that we're going up 80 each time to get the next mid-interval value. The mid-interval value is the value in the middle. So we use that. We assume that the distribution is what's called a uniform, spread out evenly, and then we use the mid value to represent those values. Okay, so on we go from this with 7, and we're going to add 80 to that. That's just a nice quick way of getting to the value, the mid-interval value that is. I'm just going to carry this down here now. Just check as well, do we need to show our work? We probably don't, but that's just because you don't have to show your work isn't really a very good reason not to show your work. Accept correct answer without units and accept correct answers without work. Okay, so this could be going directly into the calculator, but as we say in class, if anything goes wrong, then you're not going to get any marks, so it's very important. It's very good practice to write out what you're about to put in your calculator. Okay, so continuing on here, I'm going to the 12 one, and I'm multiplying it. What's 80 bigger than that? 280. Now we're going on to 3, and what's 80 bigger than that? It's 360. And we double check, does that look like it makes sense? Yes, it's in the middle there. Okay, and that's divided by the total of all of these, which you can fill into your calculator like as 0 plus 2 plus 7 plus 12 plus 3. Okay, now let's look at the use of the technology here. So first and foremost, we have a fraction. We're not going to do anything for that because it won't contribute. I'm going to mental maths this bit, so I'll say 240. I'll mental maths this bit, which is 1400. You don't have to. I'm not going to mental maths that one, so I'm going to put it in as 12 times 280. Using the bracket, I could use the multiplication symbol as well. Plus 3 times 360. And we've got to the end of our totaling, and now we're putting in the number, the sample size it's called, how many went there. So let's do a bit of mental maths on this. There's 10, 22, and 2 students, 24 students. Okay, and let's go shift equals to avoid a fraction, and to go straight to a decimal expansion. Okay, if I push SD twice, it will tell us the different ways to write that. It doesn't really matter right now. What matters is we go back and check the form that the question has asked for. Give your answer correct to the nearest centimetre. Okay, so we're rounding down, so 253 centimetres. Okay, now estimate the median distance jumped as accurately as you can. So what I'm going to start off with is saying there are 24 students. So halfway between 12 and 13 is at position 12.5. Okay, now we're going to work our way back here and say 2 students are in this interval, 7 students are in this interval, 9. So there's going to be 3.5 students in this interval. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the values are uniformly distributed along here. Okay, so what the calculation will be 240 plus what fraction of this are we going along by. Now there's 12 in there, that's 3.5 students over 12 times, and how big is this? This is 80. Now I know the marking scheme gave a slightly different answer, but that's because they didn't do it right. And there's huge flexibility. I'm going to show you the marking scheme in a moment. So it's 240. You could use 3 or 4 and it would be right as well, but the actual exact value should have used 3.5. So plus, let's go with fraction bar here, 3.5 over 12 times 80, and it'll be slightly bigger than 260, 263.3. Show you're working out. Okay, now I know that they actually got 260 and they said it's at position 12.5, but then they went on to use the third rather than the 3.5 position there. Okay, so the correct mathematical answer should have been 263. Anyway, they do say accept any value from, oh, this could be interesting actually after all I've been telling you. Yeah, between 240 and 319 exclusive with work. So in fact they were kind of very forgiving, but still, if you want to answer it correctly, that's the correct answer, and that would have been in centimeters. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because we had a big discussion with this in class. Any accept any value in the interval from 240 to 319 inclusive. This is the wiggle room of marking schemes, because they want to keep standards and they want to keep on that, what's called that normal curve. Okay, I hope that's the end of that one, and we're moving on to question 3 next. Okay guys, as always, I'll see you in the next one.